Official government UFO studies began in the late 1940s with Project Sign providing some of the most credible videos of aerial phenomena to date. Within a few years, that program eventually evolved into Project Blue Book, which actively investigated UFO sightings throughout much of the Cold War. In 2017, the revelation that the US government was actively researching UFOs reignited world interest in UFOs and aliens in general, making it something to be proud to be interested in, replacing the stigma that had surrounded it for years. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 of the most notable UFO sightings. The Ellsworth UFO sighting, 1953. We begin this story on the night of August 5th, 1953. At approximately 8 p.m, where a key witness, Miss Killian, is said to have first spotted the object close to the Ellsworth Air Force Base. At the time, she described it as a red glowing light, making long sweeping motions as it moved. Sometime later, Miss Killian's report was transmitted to the Air Defense Filter Center in Bismarck, North Dakota. This was where Sergeant Harry spotted the object from the roof. He observed it, paying close attention to its irregular movement pattern, as it danced between telephone lines. Sergeant Harry's other colleagues on duty clearly saw the light in the night sky, and together they observed the object for roughly 3 hours. Sergeant Harry recalls the event with clarity, commenting on how the object would remain stationary, then suddenly would hop up almost instantaneously. By midnight, 3 additional objects had appeared in the sky above the filter center. The officers on duty decided to contact the South Dakota Filter Center, and from there, 2 F-84 military jets were directed over Black Hawk. The Bismarck ADFC officers observed the jets and objects on their radars for a period of time. One pilot established a strong line of visual contact for at least 30 seconds, and his oar at the site could be heard over the intercom, commenting, "It's brighter than the brightest star I've ever witnessed." When he decided to give chase, the light vanished. Not long after this, he gave up on his pursuit. However, it wasn't long until a second pilot came to take over. Lieutenant Needham spotted one of the objects at a height of 15,000 feet, and noted that it moved erratically up and down, while flickers of white and green lights could be seen. He pursued the object at 26,000 feet. The object increased in speed, maintaining a steady distance of 10 to 15 feet between itself and Sergeant Needham's F-84. He continued his pursuit for some time, but ultimately gave up and headed back to the military base. His fellow pilots back at the base continued to observe the object. At around 1:09 a.m, an Air Force Globemaster II flew over Bismarck to pursue the object. As the plane closed in, the object appeared to emanate a signal by blinking red and green. This rapid signaling was picked up by the other 3 objects that had been spotted. A witness observed that it was as if a wave had passed from one to another. Not long after, the lights and objects disappeared from the radar entirely. However, around a week later, on the 12th of August, the event seemed to repeat itself, this time at the Air Defense Command radar system at Ellsworth AFB, just east of Rapid City. A spotter reported an extremely bright light low on the horizon. When the radar scanned the direction the light came from, it found the same object from the week prior, exactly where the spotter had reported it to be. The duty controller for the night studied the target for several minutes. They reported that it was very well defined and extremely bright. The object started to move southwest towards Rapid City, picking up a considerable speed. The warrant officer ordered 2 pilots to take a closer look. They reported a large blush of white lights. However, the light and object disappeared from Earth's sky just as quickly as it had appeared. The Master Sergeant at the time had been watching the whole event from afar, and said that in all of his years of duty, he had never been so completely awed by anything. The Lonnie Zamora Incident, 1964. It was approaching evening on Friday, April 24th, 1964, when Police Sergeant Lonnie Zamora was in hot pursuit of what he thought to be a speeding car just south of the city. Just as he was about to pick up the pace, Sergeant Zamora heard a roar and saw a flame in the sky from the distance. Zamora broke off the chase to investigate the sound, thinking at the time that the local dynamite cabin had blown up. However, when Sergeant Zamora started to approach the area, he noticed what he believed to be a car about 150 to 200 yards away. Two people were standing close to it, one of whom seemed to notice Zamora with some surprise. He described the vehicle as aluminium looking, white colour against the mesa background, and was round in shape. Zamora then drove towards the scene, meanwhile radioing the sheriff's office about a possible accident he would be investigating. He also then contacted New Mexico State Police Sergeant Sam Chavez for backup. When he reached around 50 feet away from the vehicle, Sergeant Zamora noted seeing landing gear and a red insignia on the side of the craft, about 2 foot in size. He later drew this up for the military and law enforcement teams. Suddenly, the smooth oval craft began to take off, emitting a loud roar that started at a low frequency, then quickly rose. The craft started to lift away from its landing spot, which Sergeant Zamora described it as rising straight up, slowly. Flames were released from underneath the object in the middle, however, it created no smoke. The flames were bright blue, merging into orange colour. The roar which erupted from the object was almost deafening. However, Sergeant Zamora carried on towards this mysterious object, as it rose from the ground, clearing the dynamite cabin by a matter of feet. After, the craft appeared to speed up, travelling extremely fast in the vague direction of the 6 Mile Canyon mountain. Up until this point, Sergeant Zamora could still see the craft, but states that it disappeared as soon as it went over the mountain, no longer emitting a blue-orange flame or any smoke at all. Soon after, Sergeant Chavez joined Sergeant Zamora at the landing site. He has denied seeing the object himself. Within a matter of hours, various authorities and figures came from all over to investigate this landing. The incident has proven to be by far one of the most baffling UFO sightings in US history. Furthermore, various theories about what Sergeant Zamora witnessed that day have been thrown around. One thing does remain the truth. The Air Force Project Blue Book team themselves have concluded that the case was unexplainable, ultimately listing it as unknown. The Westall UFO, 1966. The last UFO sighting takes us across the seas to Australia. More specifically, the suburban town of Westall in Melbourne, Victoria. This event takes place on the 6th of April 1966, almost 2 years to the day exactly after the Lonnie Zamora incident. It was a typical school day at Westall High School, and the class of 1966 had just finished exercising on the main playground. It's unknown who first spotted the craft and when, but at around 11 AM the children were gathering up their things when someone exclaimed, "Look up at the sky, it's flying saucers," to which the hordes of children started screaming and rushing inside. In a 2010 documentary, Westall 1966, The Suburban UFO Mystery, student witnesses at the time recalled seeing the object for the first time, describing it as a round silver disc with a slight purple hue, looking twice the size of a family car. The object appeared to be ascending, then crossed and overflew the high school going in a southeasterly direction, before disappearing behind a group of trees in a paddock known as the Grange. When the children got there though, what they found wasn't a spaceship at all, but instead remnants of what one may have left behind. A big round patch of yellow flattened grass with a swirly pattern. The grass appeared to have been burnt in places, scorched by some sort of downward-facing flame. After around 20 minutes, the object began to grow in speed, departing towards the northwest where it obtained elevation. Some witnesses describe it as though it had been pursued from the scene by other unidentified aircrafts that circled it. However, others have claimed that there was only 3 discs in total, some saying there was only 1. It's unknown where the object ended up, but the last sighting of it was reported not long after it entered the Grange. A few school children were running towards it when one of them looked up at the object. They described it as turning onto its side and disappearing into thin air. Perhaps the most perplexing fact about this whole case is the speed at which the authorities responded to the sighting. Barely a day after the craft had vanished, media teams from across the state had been called to report on the case. Military officials and police officers stayed close to the commotion, making sure that everyone knew it wasn't to be discussed with the public. Various scientists and UFO researchers have poured their hearts into finding the answers to the Westall case over the last half-century, with no success. Some witnesses reported seeing at the time 5 Cessna-type aircrafts around the UFO, which could be an explanation for the other discs, but as of yet, no conventional explanation can be offered for the UFO itself. The question of whether aliens exist has been a topic that's fascinated civilians and scientists alike for decades, and no one has come any closer to revealing the truth. Nonetheless, there's one thing that we can always be certain with when it comes to sightings. The government and authorities will do whatever they can to cover them up or tell you that aliens don't exist. So what do you make of these strange UFO sightings? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community whilst working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.